Perfect. I want to thank everyone for being part of today's workshop or this month's workshop. Today, we're actually doing something a little bit different. This is going to be the first workshop in a series. And I know for those that have been part of our workshops in prior months, we usually do one topic, 1 month. We're going to really finish out this year in a series that's going to build on itself. So that being said, let's get started here. So let's talk foundations. For those of you who are not familiar with myself, or maybe today's your first time on our workshop, I'm Chris Price. I'm one of our certified financial planners. And really, my job here is just to pretty much provide financial education to the community. So maybe you are a participant in one of our 401ks. Maybe you are currently one of our clients now, or maybe you were referred this by one of them. That being said, again, today's all about just education along the financial field. So today, what are we actually going to talk about? We're going to talk about the foundational piece about finances, really goal development. Now, this is something that seems a lot easier than it is. We kind of focus a lot on goals because we're trying to achieve something, we're trying to save for something, and it's a lot harder than you may think. So today's all around that. We're really going to start by discovering what influences your personal values. Like, what are your personal values and how does finances maybe influence them? Then we're going to learn how to create SMART goals. And SMART is an acronym for something, we'll get into it. And then we're going to have the third section will really be just a side note. We're going to have a little questionnaire about some of the things that you should be able to answer during your foundational approaches when you're looking at your finances. So let's define personal values. So this is going to be basically an exercise that you could do amongst yourselves to try to help determine what are those financial goals. If we were in person, we'd usually look at the slide and maybe share with the classroom. But if you look at your slide right now, you're going to see many different personal values. And usually what I like someone to do is try to pick out 6 of these personal values and write them down. And if you don't see a value here that really relates to you, there's another. But maybe you're adventurous. Maybe you need a sense of community. Maybe you are a giver and want to be compassionate. Maybe you're creative. Maybe health is a concern. Maybe knowledge, relationships, securities, wealth, success, play. All these other things could be personal values of you. So what I like everyone to do is just kind of write those down and find which is best for them. Like I said, 6 out of these. Cool. Once you get 6 of those done, then I usually tell everyone, flip that page upside down or flip that page to the other side and really rank them. Which one is the best, right? 1 through 6. Which one is probably defines you the most, which one maybe defines you the least. So we'll do like a little example. So let's say we chose adventure. What does this actually mean for us? Why is this something we do when we start creating our goals from a financial aspect? Well, it helps us decide to prioritize what's most important. So if adventure is one of them, maybe that person is someone who enjoys experiences over materialistic items. So let's make sure our goals are towards more experiences. Maybe it's more of a comfort thing than a luxury thing. Right? Maybe we want to make sure we have more experiences, maybe not save for a bigger house or something in nature. It also tells us that this person may want some more flexibility over that long-term commitment. So, sorry about that. We're too far. So not only does it tell us some of these factors, but it also tells us what are some of the costs we have to be willing to give up. Maybe some of the costs that we're willing to give up are some of those long-term commitments for short-term successes. So how does this apply, or what can our money actually do for us? So when we think of financial goals, we often think of things that we want, like think of a vacation. We also need to know how we're going to get there, or we also got to think of things like if we're trying to buy a house, the down payment. So the question is, what does our money do for us? The whole point of this money is a line for us to be able to make purchases. If we do have a goal of maybe buying a house, right? The whole point of setting up that financial goal is to get that purchase. Money can grow in value. We want it to grow in value and keep up with our lifestyle. It could support a lifestyle. And probably one of the biggest things most people like about having a financial goal or having some extra money set aside is to provide some securities. Also, when we're establishing goals, we want to define them. Are they short-term goals or are they long-term goals? And this is hugely important for us so we know where to rank our goals. So like on your screen right here, you could see kind of an example of what we would define as a short-term goal and what we would define as a long-term goal. So under our purchases, we might have a short-term goal of buying a new car. And then we have to make a plan of how much do we have to save, by what time frame do we need to have this car bought by. Right, we see here under a year, less than $2,500, but that's really dependent on who that person is. But then we have a long-term goal, like maybe buying a piece of property or buying our home. This is something where we can stretch that goal out. Depending what it is, we could decide if it's a priority or not. Growth, our money can be used for growth, right? Short-term goal might be traveling, right? We have a small dollar amount, we can invest it, use that money to travel later. College funds, support, home improvements, retirement nest egg, probably one of the biggest goals or biggest conversations that I have. And then security, making sure our income is uninterrupted. This may not be a lot of goal right this second, but when you get to retirement, this is huge. Age in place, which means you don't have to go to a home. You can take care of yourself at your house. So this is an example of some what we would call long-term goals and short-term goals. The whole point of this section is, how do we establish some goals, right? We want to make sure that we're establishing our financial goals. But if we do have those goals already set up, maybe it is retirement, maybe it is vacation, buying a house, maybe it is that, then we have to create SMART goals or make sure they're defined as SMART goals. So SMART goals is our way of defining, is that goal measurable? Is it reasonable? And that's what we're going to kind of go over it. Let's use that example of if we were to buy a house. Well, if we wanted to buy a house, we have to make sure it's smart. So first word, accurate. We want to make sure that house is something that we can accurately describe. How much money is it that we need to see? What's the value that we're going to get out of it? Two, we need to be able to measure that goal. If we understand that that goal is going to be $500,000 that we're going to need, how are we going to measure how close we're getting there in order to use that goal? It needs to be achievable, right? Some of you might have a goal of living forever. It's not an achievable goal, but maybe living to 100 is an achievable goal. It has to be relevant toward your values. We started today talking about personal values. Is the goal you created relevant to those values? And there needs to be a time bound. It needs to say, I want this done within a year, within 5 years, within 10 years. So we understand what milestones we have to hit in order to reach those financial goals. So I'm going to give everyone a second here when I do this in the classroom. Usually this is something that takes a little bit of a second to understand, okay, I have this goal. How do I make sure it fits in this SMART definition? Cool, perfect. Last section that we have on this. Now, mind you, this workshop is a building on your foundation. Then we're going to go to the next one, next one, next one as the months go. But these are the questions that you're really going to want to ask yourself to make sure your foundational finances is taken care of. So the first and foremost question, probably one of the most important ones to ask yourself is, do you know how much you earn, spend, and save every month? Otherwise known as a budget. Now, the reason why this is so important is it's kind of the tool that determines everything else that happens in your life. And if you're not sure how much you spend a month, that's okay, right? I would probably say 9 out of 10 people I speak to can't accurately answer that question. But let's become that 1 out of 10. Let's learn how we can answer that question. Let's understand how much we earn. Let's understand how much we spend. And maybe one of the most important, let's determine how much we can save. And can we save a little bit more to achieve those goals we spoke about in the beginning of this workshop? Next question. Do we have enough savings to cover living expenses in the case of an emergency? So the reason why this question is so important is a big problem that I see people run into is they did have a goal. They were on track of their goals, but something came up in their life. I'm sure everyone on this call has had something come up in your life, or you know somebody who's had something come in their life which pulled money from where they wanted it to be and put it somewhere else. But unfortunately, the fact of life means there's going to be those emergency or unexpected expenses. So do we have the savings to cover that so we don't have to dip or steal from our goals? So super important that we know that. Now, a lot of experts will say that we should have about 3 to 6 months of expenses tucked away. And that's really for the God forbid scenario, someone was to lose their income. So it gives them about a 3 to 6 month window of cushion to find something else or to replace that income. But really, your emergency expense should be related to you. If you're somebody who has a high debt, maybe you need to have a little bit more emergency expenses. If you're someone who has low debt and low expenses, maybe that lower amount. Or if you're planning for a bigger expense into the future, like needing a change in AC or something like that, maybe we should have a larger living expense. So although experts will tell you 3 to 6 months, and I would probably do the same thing in a general conversation, yours might be different based on your scenario. Next one I like everyone to understand under their foundational financial planning is, do they have any credit card debt and or do they have any credit card debt, student loans, and do they understand what other types of debt that they might have? So each debt, although it's titled one word, is unique to each person, meaning your credit card debt is different than your student loan debt, is different than your mortgage, car loan, personal debt, things of that nature. It's all based on the contract that you have. So do you have any of that debt, and do you know how that debt is structured? Because it can also drain away from your financial goals. Do you know your credit score? Now, this question is a lot more important than just knowing the number, than just knowing you have a 650 or 700 or 450 or whatever it is. It's really about, do you know what's in your credit? Now, we live in a day and age where there's things that happen that are beyond our control, and sometimes scams in there that we don't want to get involved with. But do we understand what's in our credit report? Do we understand why our number is what it is? And is that something that we can fix? Is that something that we need to address? So this question isn't so much about, do we know our credit score, but do we know why our credit score is what it is? All righty. Next question. Are we utilizing our employer's retirement plan or individual retirement accounts to save for retirement? Now, the reason this is a fundamental or foundational, I should have said, question is because you'll be surprised how many people I see that are not. And you should be taking advantage of the benefits you have at work. So like, for instance, a lot of people at work that we're talking to right now have an employer-sponsored plan. Or are you taking advantage of the fact that you could save pre-tax in that plan? Or you can save and you don't have to pay tax on the earnings of that plan. The Department of Labor and ERISA set up retirement accounts to give you a tax benefit. I highly recommend taking advantage of it. That's what this really slide is. Cool. And then, have you put in place your risk management? So what is your risk management plan? Now, risk management plan is something a lot of people don't want to talk about. It's the what ifs that happen in life. Do we have our life insurance in place, our health insurance in place, our disability insurance in place, car, auto, all these things? And if we don't have those in place, is there a plan that if that was to happen? And if we do have it in place, do we have the right amount? Right? Do we have the right amount of life insurance? Do we have too much or too little? Are we paying for too much, or do we have not enough that it's not sufficient? Same thing with health insurance and disability insurance. We can't just check off that when we have that done, is it the appropriate amount for us? That's kind of like going on a road trip and just checking off, oh, I have gas. It's more important to understand how much gas you have than just if you have it. And that's really the important part of this question is, do we have a risk management plan in place? Cool. And then the last but not least on this foundational questionnaire is, do we have a will, healthcare surrogate, proxy, all the things like durable power of attorney, all the legal documents that come with it? So we only have the two you see here because it's the basic simple one, will, healthcare, proxy. Basically, this is saying that you've already established if you can't make decisions on your behalf, who is in charge of making decisions or what's going to happen to yourself or your things. A will is both a last will and a living will. Living will is used if you are still with us, but maybe you can't make decisions on your own. Last will, obviously everyone knows, it was when you're no longer with us. How do you make decisions on your things, on who you are? This is also something important, especially healthcare proxy, if you guys have any children that are above the age of 18. So once someone becomes 18, they're an adult in this country, and you have no legal parental guidance on that individual. So a lot of things we try to encourage everyone to do is have a healthcare proxy on their kids when they turn 18. So you can still make medical or have medical conversations for your child, legally speaking. So let's put all the stuff together that we talked about today. And our first thing was really the thing you want to work on the most if you don't already have it set up, considering your unique values and goals. I really want to reiterate how important this is. The reason why this is so important is every time we save anything, we're making a sacrifice today, right? We maybe can't go out to eat today. We maybe can't buy that, whatever it is today. We maybe have to work overtime today. We have to make a sacrifice usually today. So what are you making that sacrifice for? That has to be important enough that you want to do that. So consider your unique values, consider your unique goals, make sure they're worth you doing that or spending that extra time or saving a little bit more in order to do that. Assess your current financial situation. So assessing your current financial situation is really helpful and goes along with those questions that we asked, is understanding those things about you. And mind you, if any of you guys want a copy of this, as you know from being in previous ones, there will be an email sent out once this goes through compliance. But anyhow, looking at those questions and assessing your current financial situation, knowing where you start from. And from there, building smart, achievable goals. Again, this presentation will be on, if you forgot the acronym SMART, I use it in my daily life when I create goals in everything I do. I make them sure they're SMART goals. So next steps. All right, first, I'll share what you've learned. Talk to your spouses, talk to your partners, talk to the people that you rely on most or have financial conversations with. Make sure they're aware and they can help support you in those decisions. They can also help support you when you may not want to save extra. Evaluate your goals, right? We spent less time than needed, right? Because there's a lot of time needed on goals, less time than needed on evaluating your goals. Find out what those personal unique values are and make goals from there. And then there's surveys that we'll make sure we send out. So today was a foundational conversation about your finances. Like I spoke about earlier, this month is a little different than most months. This month isn't just about one subject, one topic, one solution. This is actually going to build on itself over the next few months. Today was about foundations. Next month is savings or spending and savings. We're going to talk about how to budget, how to manage debt, how much should we be saving. The following month in October, we're going to talk about investing. What should investments look like? What are some of the things I should be acknowledge and understand when it comes to investing? And then we're going to finish and follow up the year with retirement. And then we're off for December, but we're going to finish up the year in November with retirement. I hope everybody had a great time in today's workshop and today's series. I know everybody, or hopefully everybody, kind of heard these things before. but I hope we all take the next steps in order building our foundation, and we could build on this on the next time. For those of you who have questions for us or want to meet with us, you could use the QR code on your screen right there. Like I said, once this workshop goes through compliance, we'll be able to send it out to everybody to be able to view and see. Hope everyone has an amazing day, and we'll talk soon.